most businesses, unfortunately, make it very much about them. Our product is great. Our service is great. Look how much better we are than, the guy down the road, or those sorts of messages. It's all, if you make it all about you, it's ultimately a turnoff to your customer, because they really just, all they care about is how you can help them. Like, make it about them. And if you always talk about your customers' problems, that's kind of another core tenet of Storybrand world, is never stop talking about your customers' problems. If you are talking about the problem you can help them solve over and over and over again, they will continue to engage and listen to you as a brand.
The following is brought to you by Thryv, the end-to-end client experience platform that helps you get the job, manage the job, and get credit.
Hey, this is Gordon Henry at Winning on Main Street, and this week you get to meet Erin Fults. Erin is the founder of Acorn Studio, a marketing, consulting, and coaching business. Lots to learn there. She is a Storybrand Certified Guide and a Business Made Simple Certified Coach. Erin's background includes more than a decade of experience growing a professional photography studio and 5 years organizing and co-hosting an annual conference that attracted small business owners from around the world. So she has a lot to share with us on a number of fronts. She and her husband, John, and their 3 children live in Mississippi. Welcome, Erin.
Thanks, Gordon. Happy to be here.
Great to have you. Tell us, who are your typical clients and what are the typical problems you solve for them?
Yeah. So in the tail end, actually, of my photography, having that business, I was starting to work with a lot of small businesses, most of them local to me, a lot of them service-based businesses. And that still is true today in terms of the types of clients I work with tend to be small to mid-sized service-based businesses. And I was helping them with visual related things when I was doing photography there in the tail end of having my photography business. But very quickly, as I was helping them with brand photos and images for social and website and all headshots, all of those kinds of things. That was such a small piece of a really big puzzle that they needed to solve for, which was their marketing. And so I had been introduced to a framework called the Storybrand framework, if any of your listeners happen to know that, back in maybe 2016, 2017, and was applying that to my photography studio. And so as I began to apply what I was learning in the context of my own business, and then I had these clients that were coming in that were business clients, I kept telling them, okay, I can help you with actually more than just your images. You actually need to solve for what is the message that what is your brand and marketing message? How are you talking about what you're doing? And they just didn't. Like many small business owners, you are wearing a lot of hats and you know that marketing is important, but when in the world do you ever have time to slow the train down long enough to go, okay, what is our marketing message? What is the message we're putting out into the world? What does that look like? And so now the work that I do is entirely centered around that. I help small service-based businesses develop what's your marketing message? How are you talking about what you offer in a way that's clear, in a way that really connects with your ideal customer and client? And then we apply that to starting with their website, almost always is the thing that needs the most help in the beginning, starting with applying that clear brand message to their website. And then from there, applying it to other marketing materials and collateral and helping them really develop a marketing plan moving forward.
Yep. So for those who don't know, this Storybrand thing you mentioned, which I want to hear more about, it's a pretty big deal. It was founded by a guy called Donald Miller. He wrote a book about the Storybrand framework. Why don't you tell us about the framework and why it makes so much sense and how it helps small businesses?
Yeah, so the book is called Building a Storybrand, and like you said, written by Donald Miller. And all it is really is just a filter or a framework that you can use to develop a really clear brand message. Now, it is using the elements of narrative story. And as humans, our brains are designed to respond to story. Like, we daydream 30% of our days. And when a story starts, we kind of snap into it and lock in on the story. And so filmmakers and writers have been using story framework for decades, right? Centuries, to really compel the human brain. And we can now use it. Don basically translated it and said, hey, you can take this framework that's been used for forever to really compel the human brain toward action. And let's just apply it to our marketing messages. So it's not new. It's being applied in newish ways when it comes to using that framework in a marketing message.
Right. Without going into the whole thing about the 7 parts, I mean, it's the basic idea of having a hero who has a problem, right? And then there's a guide who helps the hero overcome the problem, leading to a positive resolution or success. So for the business, what's the thing they find out? I mean, isn't it this idea that the business is not the hero of the story, the customer's the hero of the story, and the business is sort of the guide, helping the customer find what they're looking for?
Yeah, that's it exactly. And so, like you said, there are 7 parts, but the biggest switch that most businesses come to a realization and have to make is that they don't need to hold the hero position when it comes to how they talk about their business. They actually need to hold the guide position, and your customer or client is the hero. And you're just coming alongside them as a brand and as a company to help them overcome their problem, to get the thing that they want as it relates to what you offer. And you're walking alongside them to help them get that so they can win their day. And so it's less about you and it's way more customer focused than most businesses, unfortunately, make it very much about them. Our product is great. Our service is great. Look how much better we are than, the guy down the road, or those sorts of messages. It's all, if you make it all about you, it's ultimately a turnoff to your customer, because they really just, all they care about is how you can help them. Like, make it about them. And if you always talk about your customers' problems, that's kind of another core tenet of Storybrand world, is never stop talking about your customers' problems. If you are talking about the problem you can help them solve over and over and over again, they will continue to engage and listen to you as a brand.
So just shifting a little bit, I know you're a mom and you balance the work and the family thing. Many people face this challenge today, how to kind of work-life balance, if you want to call it that. How do you do it?
How do I do it? Not always perfectly, I'll say that, but it's a work in progress always. So I have built my business to work for our family. So I am mom first. And way back in 2008, when I was starting my business, part of my first business, part of that was I was coming home after having my daughter in 2007, my oldest, and my husband and I both were in agreement and said, I'm going to do this, and I'm still going to be mom first. Like, that role will always trump whatever is happening as it relates to building a business. And I think a lot of times entrepreneurs, we can easily get sucked into like building this big successful thing, whatever that looks like, and forget that the whole reason that most of us are building this successful thing is so we can have a great life. And we forget about living the great life piece in the middle of building the big successful thing. And so being mindful of that and just honoring the season of life that I'm in is a mantra I have adopted. And I'm not going to be in this season forever. My kids are not going to be in school and as dependent on me forever as they are right now. And to honor the season instead of trying to fight against the season, things get easier, and there is more peace in our home when I accept that and not try to fight against it. So,
yeah, it's great insight. We're going to take a quick break. We're going to hear a word from our sponsor, Thryv, and we'll be right back with more from Erin Fults.
This episode of Winning on Main Street is brought to you by Thryv, the end-to-end client experience platform that includes everything small business owners need to meet their customers' expectations. Thryv's award-winning and fully mobile interface delivers technology previously reserved for big business to the fingertips of small business owners nationwide. Thryv's built specifically for small business, but there's nothing small about what it can do. Thryv handles your entire customer experience, helping business owners reach more customers, stay organized, get paid faster, and generate online reviews, all from a single device or screen. To learn more about Thryv, visit winningonmainstreet.com and click on Get a Demo. When it comes to software to run your business, there's no comparison. Check out Thryv today.
And we're back with Erin Fults, who runs the Acorn Studio business down in Mississippi. And we've just been talking a little bit about work-life balance and how she does it, something I know a lot of people out there can relate to or striving to figure it all out. What's the technology that you recommend for your clients, or is that something you talk to them about in terms of, what they need to run their business from a tech perspective or to market themselves from a tech perspective?
Yeah, so it's going to vary depending on the business. I mean, there's always the common pieces. Like, it is non-negotiable for you to have a website in the world that we live in. It's just a non-negotiable if you're going to be in business. So now, what type of tech, what platform it's on, there are lots of great options out there, and it just really depends on what you need. And it depends on the kind of business you're building and the goals that you have with that. Is it something that you're wanting to keep a pretty small, lean team, or do you have aspirations to really scale and grow? And so those are the kind of foundational questions you need to ask as it relates to tech. Having a CRM, if you're especially service-based, is a must. And so that, whether it's Thryv, there's so many great ones out there. It's finding the one that is the right fit for your customer journey, how you work. And really the best CRM is the one that you'll actually use, right? Because if it's going to just, sit as a tab on your computer and never get opened, it doesn't serve anybody. So a CRM is another non-negotiable. But there are other things out there as it relates to marketing. I think especially with small businesses, email marketing is, I think there is a growing contingent of people who are waking up and going, oh, it's not enough to have a social media following. I really need to own my list. I need to own my audience and email them with regularity. There are still plenty of small businesses, and I have conversations with them all the time, who just they're like, I don't know if I really need that. And at the time of this recording, a few weeks back was the great Facebook and Instagram outage of 2021. And, there for a few hours, there were businesses, especially small businesses, that were scrambling and going, I can't reach my people. And if everybody's on a social platform and you have not brought them over and got them into an email list, that can be really problematic, especially for long term. So those are some really core pieces. There are lots of other, I try to keep things lean in my tech stack for the sake of simplicity, but there are a lot of tech pieces that go into running my own business and making things talk to each other, and everything from calendaring. If you're a service-based provider, a calendaring system that people can auto schedule with you can really save time and efficiency. And there are CRMs that integrate with that. I'm guessing Thryv, you guys have that as part of your system. Yeah.
Core piece. Yeah. Core piece.
Yeah. There are things like that where I think small businesses have to go, how much technology do I need? There are some things you can automate too much, actually. And I think in a small business, you can automate things too much, where you spend more time getting the automation worked out than it would take to do the thing. And there are lots of areas where you can automate and you can gain efficiencies. If you just slow down long enough to implement it once, it could really save you time, headache in the long run.
Yeah, 100%. And one thing we like to point out, small business owners too, really any business, is as you think ahead long term, most small business owners think someday maybe I can sell my business. And if you have your client database, if you own that client database and you have all the information about your clients, who are they, where are they, email addresses you mentioned, other contact information, history, what they buy, what they spend, how do they pay, that's really valuable information when it becomes time to sell the business, because your buyer obviously is very interested in not just your machinery or technology, but your customer base. So that's a key thing there. We just have a couple minutes left. I did want to ask you, since you're such an expert on websites, if you could just sort of identify, for those who might be listening who have a website, what are the common mistakes, the typical things that people do wrong with their website that you would typically change?
Yeah, so a lot of mistakes that I see on websites is that I mean, mistake number one is if somebody lands on your site and they can't figure out what you do, that's a messaging problem. But I can't tell you how many websites that I have visited. I go to the homepage and you pull it up and you see the header, that area that you see before you have to start scrolling down the homepage, and you go, I have no idea what product or service they offer. I was on one the other day and I was like, I think I can kind of figure out that this is a tech, like anyway, you look at it and go, I have no idea. So 3 questions to ask yourself. Go pull up your website, look at it before you start scrolling on your homepage. Are the words that are on your site, did they answer these 3 questions? Does it clearly state what you do? Like, what is the product or service that you offer? If you are a plumber, make sure it says you're a plumber. If you are a landscape architect, make sure it says you're a landscape architect. If you're whatever the product or service is, it needs to state that clearly above the fold, above the scroll. You also want to show, like, how do you make your customer's life better? Is there some sort of success language that you can use on the before you scroll part of your website that helps set you apart from the other landscape guy or the other plumber down the street? What is the success language you can communicate? And then the third, and maybe arguably the most important, how do you get it? What is the one next thing they need to do business with you? And so that needs to be clearly styled as a button. Put it at the top right of your website if you can. Repeat that button, that call to action button again over and over down your homepage and throughout your site. And that would be a call today, buy now, schedule an appointment, shop now. Those are all great calls to action. Get started or learn more are terrible, weak calls to action. So if it says get started or it says learn more, change it to something more clear and concrete that they know what's happening on the other side of clicking that button. And so those would be the immediate things. And then looking at things like, are the images on your website, are they of smiley, happy people using your product or service? Don't put pictures of a building. Don't put pictures of like equipment that has to do with the service you offer. Like, show pictures of people that are experiencing success as a result of working with you. And then include things like testimonials. You can sprinkle those all throughout your site. Don't just leave it to a testimonials page that somebody has to click on. Sprinkle those throughout your homepage. Have a clear plan of what are the step 1, step 2, step 3. How does somebody do business with you? Break that down in high level. What are, the 3 kind of phases somebody goes through, or the next 3 things they need to do to move forward in doing business with you, even if it feels really obvious to you. You can never be too obvious and too clear when it comes to communicating on your website, how somebody can work with you. So those are a handful of the immediate things that I see and improvements people can make on their site that can really make a difference in conversion. Super.
Well, really exciting to have you here. I love your story. Before we go, how do people get in touch with Erin? The acornteam.com, I know, is your URL. How else should they reach out to you?
Yeah. So if your audience, if anybody, we talked about websites earlier. I have a free download on my site. If you go to acornteam.com/Main Street, I have a download there. If you guys want that, you can grab it and take a look at your site and implement those handful of things there. So my website's a great place. LinkedIn is probably the best social platform, and it's just my name, Erin Fults, and Fults is spelled with an S on the end, is the best place to find me on social.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much for stopping by. Really appreciated having you.
Thanks, Gordon. It was a pleasure to have this conversation with you today.
And if you enjoyed this podcast, please give us a 5-star review and recommend us to a friend or colleague. We'd really appreciate it. Until next time, make it a great week.